Hi, this is Gina from Her Cosmic Crown. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have a special topic, and that topic is the Saturn return. Yes, the dreaded Saturn return. Before we dive into what a Saturn return looks like, depending on where Saturn is placed in your chart, so I'm going to go through all of the houses Saturn's in and what that can look like during a Saturn return. Before I get into all of that juicy stuff, I want to briefly discuss what Saturn is. Many people are afraid of Saturn, the planet Saturn, because it is the planet of endings, of losses, of destruction, of our weaknesses. It's also the planet that has to do with accepting what is. It's a planet of lessons, of hard lessons that we have to learn. And it's not a bad planet though, but it's a difficult one, because a lot of times when something is no longer in our lives, we have to let go of that thing. If something's not going exactly how we planned, we gotta let go of it. And Saturn can be painful. We all have Saturn in our charts. We all go through pain and suffering. It's part of the human condition. No one can escape it. But we all deal with Saturn in different ways. What can happen during a Saturn return? Anything and everything. We can have up to 3 Saturn returns. And our first Saturn return happens between the ages of 27 and 28 years of age. And basically whatever house Saturn is in our natal chart, you know, after 27 or 28 years, it returns to the exact same position, the exact same house Saturn was in the moment we were born. All planets have their cycles, and Saturn being the slowest moving visible planet, it's a very significant one every time it returns. We have to face something difficult, something that we are now responsible for. We're really adulting at this time, and I wouldn't say it's anything to be afraid of, but it is something to be cognizant of. And not everyone has a really difficult Saturn return. What can happen is someone might become pregnant, and now they have a responsibility of raising a kid, or you know, maybe they have their second or third kid during this time, and it's becoming a lot, you know, because Saturn represents burdens. Even though these are things that we are excited about, you know, having 2 kids, 3 kids, it's a lot of work. And Saturn's all about the hard work as well. So they may have faced a DUI charge because they were partying and not taking responsibility of their life, or they might have a significant death in their life, or they can have health issues. So the purpose of the Saturn return is to help us understand some coping mechanisms that will help us be stronger for the rest of our lives, to promote longevity as well, so that we're living our healthiest lives. And it really is there to help us align ourselves in our lives and make us responsible and take care of whatever we need to take care of, and be stronger as we carry on with enduring certain burdens that we have in our lives. All planets have admirable things about them, and one of the admirable things about Saturn is that he's all about promoting greatness in a person. So a person with a solid Saturn in their chart, they can become a great person. They can do a lot of great things in life. And this is because a person's able to endure a lot of things that other people aren't able to endure. And an example of this is, say someone is a coffee shop owner or owner of a restaurant, right? That takes a lot of responsibility, right? You have to make sure your employees are on task. You have to delegate who's going to get certain groceries and things like that. And sometimes those burdens fall on you. If someone calls out sick, that falls on you. So it takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of drudgery when it comes to Saturn, but it can allow a person to endure those difficult moments and painful moments so that they can become successful. So Saturn, believe it or not, can promote success in a person's life. Between the ages of 28 and 29, that is the Saturn return. And this is when we are really maturing and we are taking things more seriously in life. And we are taking care of our responsibilities. During our second Saturn return, that's between the ages of 57 and 60, a person is realizing, hey, I have not as much time left to live as the time I've already lived, right? So they're past their midlife, and unfortunately, many of their loved ones have passed away. Maybe their parents have already passed away, and it can be a phase where it's like, okay, I got to get serious in terms of how I want to live the rest of my life. I need to plan for that if they haven't already. So a person starts looking at their finances. They start wondering, am I able to retire at this time? And some might realize that I'm not able to retire because I just don't have the funds to retire yet. So that can be a harsh reality that some deal with. Others may be able to retire, but it can be difficult to retire because that could be a loss of identity. Maybe they really identified with their job, they really loved it, but now they're having to face retirement, and it's like, well, what am I gonna do with my life now? There could be so many things that happen during this time. Maybe one person's forced to take care of their grandchildren. So many things can happen during our second Saturn return. For some people, they are still able to do something great in their life and finish out a project that they want to the last stage in their life, and they pursue that. And so their focus could be doing more hard work, but it's on the path to doing more greatness or doing greater things in life. And the third Saturn return happens in our 80s. Now, not everyone reaches their 80s, but if a person does reach their 80s, this is the time to reflect on our lives and to accept what happened in our lives and not really hold on to grudges. And it's important to detach from any regrets that a person might have, and because that is Saturn. Saturn is detaching, and not holding on to grudges and things like that can make our third Saturn return successful. And during this time, we can be liberated from any burdens. Saturn's all about letting go. So it could be letting go of emotional grudges, but also of material things. So at this time, a person may be giving away things, letting go of their attachment to the world, the worldly things in the world. Some people may be wrapping up the projects that they've been working on since their first Saturn return or second Saturn return, so they could be wrapping those projects up. I'm briefly gonna describe what a Saturn return might look like in each house. And keep in mind, I'm a Tropical Vedic astrologer. I use the whole sign, whole house system. So starting with the first house has to do with the self, the path a person's on. So if a person has Saturn in the first house, during their Saturn return, they may face some difficulties when it comes to their path, the path that they're on. There might be some lessons that they have to learn regarding the path that they're on. For others, they might struggle with their health because the first house has to do with the body, the health. So there could be health issues that arise during this time. There can be some difficulties revolving around what you want to become as a person. If you have a Saturn return that falls in your second house, you may face problems with your family. There could be some struggles with your family, some difficulties around your family, some burdens. Also, the second house has to do with our finances. So there can be struggles with getting ahead in life, with taking care of your material responsibilities. Things can break down, right? Anything that you have that you're responsible for can, you know, break down. It may not do too well. It may not be producing enough for you to get a return on it. So that can be a difficulty, and you can also face some difficulties regarding your self-worth, because for some reason maybe you're not getting the finances that you deserve for something, and then that can lower your self-worth as well. Having your Saturn in the 3rd house during your Saturn return, you can face some issues with your colleagues, your work colleagues, your teammates, even your siblings. Also during this time, you may face some kind of challenge, some difficulty, something that you have to fight for and prove yourself. You could be training for something and it could be very arduous, or you know, you really have to concentrate, and it can be really difficult for that. So if you're training to become a martial artist, during this time it can be really difficult to do it. It doesn't mean you won't succeed in that. It just means that it can be difficult. And you can just face some difficulties in general when it comes to facing any challenges that you have in your life. Having your Saturn return in the 4th house, you can experience some deep emotional pain. Something can be very painful for you emotionally. Also, you can have some struggles around your home life. Your home life can be really difficult during this time. Something with your mom, because the 4th house also has to do with the mother. Your mother can be going through some difficulties, which in turn makes it difficult for you to see that. It can impact you as well. If you have Saturn in the 5th house, you can face some trouble with your children, some struggle with your children. If you have any children, your children can be going through some difficulties. The 5th house also has to do with romance and the love that we give to others. So you may face some challenges when it comes to your romantic life or any creative endeavors that you have, since the 5th house also represents our creative intelligence. So there could be some difficulty, some burdens when it comes to expressing our creative side during this time. So if you have Saturn in the 6th house during your Saturn return, you might realize that you have a lot of debt and you have to face reality. Like, oh shoot, I have a lot of debt to take care of. I need to pay off my student loans or pay my mortgage since I have a house now, whatever the case may be. The 6th house also rules our health, so you may face some health issues that you didn't have before, or you were putting off on taking care of some health issues, and now you have no choice but to face those things. You got to get those things taken care of. And if you have health issues and you go to the doctor, you may have a hospital bill or a doctor's bill, and that could add more to your debt. So again, there's the debt issue with Saturn in your 6th house. You can also face some obstacles with some enemies that you may have in life. So you may be fighting off some enemies in some kind of way, or your work life can prove to be quite challenging during this time. If you have Saturn in the 7th house, you can face some struggles when it comes to your relationships, romantic relationships, business partners. If you have to deal with the public in some kind of way, there can be struggles at that time. If you are traveling overseas, because the 7th house has to do with overseas travel, there can be some issues there. If you are trading or doing some kind of trade or business stuff, things can be slow during this time. Things can be delayed. Things may not be working out as smoothly as you had planned for them to work out. If you have Saturn in the 8th house, you may be facing some battles. This could be legal battles, or just something very serious that you're having to battle, to fight, to endure. The 8th house is also a psychological house, so there can be some hidden psychological things that you are faced to confront and work through. You could be facing your own mortality and your own longevity, so you may do things to help you live longer, and that promotes your longevity. Overall, you may really be focusing on your emotional issues and your psychological complexes. You may even get into astrology during this time, or look into psychology or any of the occult sciences to help you through this time. The 9th house has to do with our beliefs. So with Saturn in your 9th house, you may be confronted with your own beliefs, and you may struggle with them and may find out that, hey, I don't know if I believe in that anymore. And that can be quite hard. I think sometimes we might think, oh, that's easy, but it can be hard coming to terms with what we thought was true all this long may not be entirely true. And that can be a tough pill to swallow. So there can be kind of this awakening if you have your Saturn in the 9th house. The 9th house also has to do with our parents. So there can be a struggle with our parents. Our parents often teach us about certain beliefs. We can struggle with our beliefs because of that. The 9th house has to do with philosophy, spirituality, our belief systems in general, which I already discussed. But yeah, there can be a struggle with our philosophy during this time, and also cultural stuff. So we can struggle with our own cultural views about our own culture, or maybe if you are abroad somewhere and learning about another culture, there can be some cultural clashes, or maybe even some culture shock you're dealing with, or something like that. If you have Saturn in the 10th house, there can be some serious burdens that are placed on you. Maybe it has to do with work. Now you might be promoted, or maybe you are in the same position you were, but either way you're facing some burdens, and you can struggle with your material obligations, your responsibilities that you have to take care of. It may be overwhelming. It could be a lot that you are having to take care of during this time. You're learning how to cope with the difficulties, the stress. You're learning coping mechanisms to help you manage a lot of material burdens and obligations. There could be delays with your career. There can be some painful things that happen in your career. And the 10th house also has to do with our reputation. So maybe something serious can happen in terms of your reputation during this time. If you have Saturn in your 11th house, you can face some issues when it comes to your network, with groups, with your peers. There can be something that you have to let go of, maybe some groups that you're kind of getting away from or detaching from. You may struggle to get ahead during this time, a struggle to get a promotion. And the 11th house has to do with getting respect from others. So maybe at this time you don't feel like you're getting respect or getting the respect that you deserve. You could be working really hard, doing the same amount of work as everyone else, but you're not getting noticed. You're not getting recognized for your efforts. And in fact, maybe you're facing a lot of difficulties when it comes to getting the respect from your peers, even though you feel that you're doing the hard work and things like that, the difficult tasks. So even getting your desires fulfilled during this time, it can seem like a very slow process, but during this time you are figuring out ways to get ahead in life, and you're learning to endure this pain and to keep going despite it looking like you're not getting anywhere. You're learning to keep going and put in the hard work. Or you're learning that maybe you're not in the right group or social group, and maybe another social group would be a better fit for you. The 12th house is the house of expenses, so you can encounter some expenses that are maybe a huge loss and where you're not getting much in return. And the 12th house isn't a bad house when it comes to loss, because losing something, losing money to buy a house, if it proves to be a good investment, we can get a return on that. But if it's a loss where we don't get anything back, or what we get back doesn't match what we put in, then that could be a significant loss. So there can be a big loss during this time, some kind of expense, or there can be a struggle with the results of your battle. So the 6th house has to do with our enemies, the 8th house has to do with the battle with our enemies, and the 12th house has to do with the result of that battle that we go through. So if we have a battle in the result of our battle with Saturn in our 12th house, even if we are successful in that battle, it could still wear us out, wear us down. There can be delays with getting the results of a battle or a court case. There can be some isolation during this time, because the 12th house has to do with isolation, and the 12th house has to do with vacations, because it has to do with getting away from worldly responsibilities. But if we have Saturn there, taking vacations or anything like that there can be some kind of heaviness to it, or some burden, or some setbacks, some losses. Maybe the vacation is really expensive, right? And we lose a lot of money because something happens during that time, and now we have to pay a lot of money for that expense. On a severe note, it can be Saturn in the 12th can represent imprisonment or escaping life with drugs and alcohol or video games or whatever the case may be. But there can be some kind of difficulty when it comes to getting away from our material responsibilities. We're not able to quite do that in a way where we are just kicking back and able to calm our bodies 100%. I hope that my breakdown on the Saturn return was helpful for you. Please let me know if you have any questions. And I also am curious, if you already had your Saturn return, let me know if the description of your Saturn placement resonated with you. So yeah, let me know in the description box below. And if you already had your second Saturn return, let me know what that is like, because I have yet to experience that. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.